Hello, this is Jim Stockstill bringing you a program from the Philippines. I was hoping it was going to be beautiful today, but it's very rainy. Entitled The Handwriting on the Wall. And I want to discuss Daniel chapter 2, chapter 7, and chapter 8. Chapter 2 and chapter 7 of Daniel are both chapters that talks about the 4 kingdoms that will come upon this earth. Now I said 4. Somehow Bible teachers have tried to get 5 out of it, 6 out of it, and rebirth of, it's just a simple thing. It's never been more than 4 kingdoms that would come out. The kingdoms were given to Daniel and to Nebuchadnezzar to show what would come out of that area, that geographical region, that region of Babylon that Daniel was in, the territory that was possessed at that time. The kingdoms that would arise in that area were the kingdoms that were given to Daniel and the kingdoms that were given to Nebuchadnezzar. And then in chapter 8 it talks about the origin of that last kingdom. Now some of you have predetermined mindsets, and it takes revelation to understand the scriptures, revelation of the scriptures. Now, it's all right to change your mind once you've seen the light. I mean, I preached what I heard when I first came into the Lord. I preached what they told me. I taught. I'm a teacher by nature. I taught what they taught me to teach. But now, you know, Daniel was shut up until the very end, and now that time has come. And the very end. Now chapter 2 talks about Nebuchadnezzar, and he had dreams of metal. He had this big beast that stood in front of him, and Daniel was the only one that could interpret it. And Daniel said the 4 beasts are these. You're the head of gold, and that's Nebuchadnezzar. He said the next will be after you, not quite as great as you, and that'll be the Medes and the Persian. The second beast will be a bear. The second beast will be a silver, and it will have a chest, breast, and arms of silver, and that will be Persia. And he said the next beast would be brass, and brass would be Greece, and the 4th beast would be different than all the others, and it would have iron in it, and it would have legs of iron and feet of iron and clay, a mixture. And then it says something very, very peculiar in it. It says the feet and iron will not mix, and then it says they will mingle themselves with the seed of men, but as iron and clay does not mix, so will the mingling of the seed and with men mix. And this is implying demonic intervention in the last days. And I'm not going to really get into that right now. We know that it's going to be like it was in the days of Noah. It's going to be days of Noah. There were Nephilims. They'd look down. The sons of God had looked down upon the women of men, upon the women, and saw that they were beautiful. And they came into them, and they had children, and they were men of renown. They were giants in those days. And so when they mingled with the seed of men, I want you to go back and you ask God what that is. You inquire of the Lord and get revelation of that. What I'm trying to show you is the kingdom that will come last. So here the first dream in Daniel is Nebuchadnezzar has a dream of the 4 beasts, and the 4. The statue of gold, the statue of silver, the statue has brass in it, and the statue has iron in it. So we see that, and then the next, Daniel has a vision and a dream upon his bed, and he writes it down, and it's in 7, it's of beasts. So the analogy that God gives Daniel is an analogy of beasts in the last days. So the first beast is a lion, and it has wings of an eagle, and it's given a heart of man. And we know that Nebuchadnezzar later was given a heart of man after he was 7 years as a beast out in the field. So Nebuchadnezzar is the first beast, the lion, and then you have a bear, and it raises up on has three sides and it three ribs, and it devours much flesh. And this is the Medes and the Persians. So that's Persia again, the Medes and the Persian, the second beast. Then you have the third beast, which is a leopard, and that's always Greece. These are Eastern empires. They're not Western empires. Man, we got some ego to think everything was a Western empire. These are Eastern empires. The third was the Grecian Empire, led by Alexander the Great. And then the fourth, Daniel describes it as a great beast, great iron teeth. And here again, so this beast has got only one that has metal mixed in it. Had metal mixed in it. So let's go to chapter 2 and look at some of the highlights of chapter 2. Some of the highlights of chapter 2. Daniel's the only one, and the three children, Ham, Shack, and Meshach. They were all, the three children were of Israel were the only ones that could interpret the dream. And Daniel got his friends in, and they got before God, and the dream was interpreted. And then he goes to the king. The king was going to kill all the wise men. He says, let me interpret it. And he says, what I'm going to tell you, I can interpret it only because God has given me the dream. I have no more power than any other man, only revelation, because God I've sought God, and He's decided to let me have this dream. And he humbles himself before the king, and says that he's, and has a very humble spirit before the king. And then he tells the king the dream, because the king couldn't even remember the dream. And he tells the king the dream. And then he points out that the last kingdom, the feet of it, will be partly of iron and partly of clay. And as iron and clay doesn't mix, neither will the seed of whoever they are, which is Satan, will not mix with the seed of men. They will mingle themselves with the seed of men, and it will not mix. But he said the kingdom is going to be really strong, like iron, because iron's very strong. But then he says that the kingdom is going to be very weak because of the clay, and then there's a stone that is cut out without hands, and it falls on the statue, and it breaks the statue, and it crumbles, and all the kingdoms are dispersed with. And then this stone becomes a great mountain. And Daniel goes on to explain that this stone is the last kingdom that'll be on earth, and it's the kingdom of God that's established, and it will never be moved. So here we have that in chapter 2, that the allegory that God uses is a statue of different metals. Then we go to chapter 7, and Daniel has the beasts, and the beasts again are the lion, the bear, the leopard, and then the iron beast with the great iron teeth. But then finally, we go to chapter 8. And chapter 8, Daniel has a vision of the ram and the he-goat. And the ram's mighty powerful, and it's conquering everything. And then the he-goat appears on the scene, and it's coming from the west, and its feet aren't even touching the ground. Now this is very significant. This means God's hand is on this he-goat. God's eternal destiny is up on this, because the feet doesn't even touch the ground. It's a supernatural thing that's going on here. So the ram can't stand in front of the he-goat. The he-goat stomps the ram and smears it and obliterates it. It stamps it with its feet, and then the he-goat becomes very strong, and the notable horn becomes very strong. And then the notable horn is broken off, and out of it comes up 4 notable horns. Not as notable as the main horn, but 4 notable horns. And then out of one of these horns comes the little horn, or comes the Antichrist. So here we have that in Daniel in chapter 8. The he-goat waxed great. But then the horn is broken. Alexander the Great is the great horn. He dies. His 4 generals comes up in his place, and the 4 generals take over his empire. And one of them takes over Greece, and 3 of them takes over the Mid-East. And it's out of one of these that the last, out of one of them comes forth a little horn. It's the Seleucian Empire that Antiochus took over from Alexander, and it becomes very great. And it includes Turkey and Syria and Lebanon and all these Mid-East nations. And then out of this is supposed to come a little horn, or a Antichrist comes out of that. Now these are all Muslim nations. These are all Islamic nations. The beast is Islam. The iron is Islam, and it conquers, and it's satanic in origin. You just don't go around cutting people's heads off. You just don't go around cutting children out of the womb, cutting babies out of the womb of the mother. You just don't go around murdering in the name of someone. It's the greatest, most evil beast to ever come on the earth, and it's even greater than Hitler. It's even meaner than Hitler. It's even more vile than, so this is what Daniel is saying. He's saying there's 4 kingdoms that'll come up on the earth. He names them. He says the first one is Babylon, the second one is Persia, he says the third one is Greece, and then out of the Grecian Empire, Rome is never mentioned in this. Rome is never mentioned, yet for 100 years, I guess, we've taught that Rome was the last empire, and Rome is not the last empire. Out of one of these, it says. Now, I'm just going to ask you to go into your Bible. I'm going to ask you to read chapter 8 of Daniel, and then there's going to come forth a little horn, and then the little horn is going to take over the area, and then he's going to be along with 10 kings, and he's going to take 10 kings for a season. They give him their power for a season, and then he subdues 3 of these kings, and then he rules. They give him his kingdom, and they give him the power, and they give him the authority. So if we could get anything about this, chapter 2, 7, and 8 go right along in Daniel. They give a full scenario of the things that are going to happen. I hope that this helps you a little bit. Until next time, this is Jim Stockstill saying, I want you to keep looking for the handwriting on the wall.